Candace joining us. Your thoughts on the guilty verdict, guilty on all charges?
Um, it's the wrong verdict, in my opinion.
Why is it the wrong verdict? Please explain. And what verdict were you expecting? Not guilty? I guess there's a possibility police officers hardly get convicted of incidents like this involving police brutality. But the video of George Floyd's death really does speak for itself.
And I think that it's indicative of the fact that we now live in mob rule. This is mob rule society. Yeah. I mean, this is based on the evidence that we saw, and this was polluted from start to finish. So to me, the most important element of this, which I found to be astonishing, was the fact that they never released the full police footage. They had it, they sat on it, They locked it down. It leaked months and months later after the riots, via the Daily Mail, I think. But when I watched the full tape, I was astonished that they didn't think to just at least add this context.
Okay, she has a point. Context is important. All facts are important. And George Floyd's death was exploited, obviously for a political agenda to get Biden in office, or at least to assist with that agenda. And I don't approve of that. But the footage that was released later doesn't incriminate Floyd, if that's what you're referring to, or suggest that his death was justified, because it's not justified.
So that people understood, yes, this person was high out of his mind. He asked to be put on the ground.
Now, she's right about saying that Floyd had drugs in his system. But according to medical experts, the levels weren't high enough to produce intoxicating effects. And it should also be noted that he didn't have enough fentanyl in his system to cause an overdose, or it wasn't enough to kill him.
He was resisting arrest. Let's not forget what they did, the power they had in setting up this narrative to begin with. First, the media said he was just getting his life together. Do you remember St. George?
Yeah, they do
you
this
guys
all the
remember
time,
St. George, right? He was just getting his life together. He had moved to Minnesota. Yes, he was, had been in prison in the past, but he was just helping the youth. And everyone was crying, and it was, oh my gosh, this man is, was getting a second chance at life, and, maybe had the wrong ID or whatever it was using counterfeit bills, and somebody called the police, and then he was killed. He was brutally murdered on the basis of him being black. No indication. Nothing was said out of Derek Chauvin's mouth that, should insinuate that this was about being black versus white, but that was what the media ran with.
Now, in regards to Derek Chauvin killing Floyd specifically because he's black can be disputed. But what should also be taken into account is the history of police brutality against black people. It's a legit issue, and I do believe Derek Chauvin falls in that category. And I get it. Not all are like that, but they do exist. She's right about the media and politicians exploiting the black plight as if they really care, and they don't. Boyce Watkins refers to this as the racial justice hustle.
And then they successfully hid every piece of evidence that would have transformed public opinion, right? Every piece of evidence that would have said, wait a second, there's more here. And they were upset when I released the video and just went over his track record, because it was clear to me, according to his track record, that it was very unlikely that a person that spends, approximately 9 stints in prison was really just getting his life together after having served the last one. So, to me, I think the saddest part of this is that what we need to acknowledge is that right now, mob rules. The media creates the mob, and the mob rules, and that's what we just saw play out.
Candace never talks about Derek Chauvin and his record, and it's reported that he's been accused of incidents involving excessive force. More emphasis should be placed on his record, just as much as Floyd. It should be consistent across the board, but it ain't. Floyd's criminal record isn't relevant here. And when it's emphasized, it's only to undermine his character and push this idea that he deserved it. In this entire segment, Candace just comes off as unauthentic and disingenuous, and it almost seems like she doesn't believe what she's saying. She's just glad to be there, and she's appeasing so she can stay in the good graces of her conservative colleagues. That's what it seems like to me.